Another busy day so far in the NHL. We have lots more trades to break down, although the magnitude of these trades isn't quite on the level of the trades that we saw yesterday, but definitely still some interesting moves. Before we get into the trades, there is a contract extension that I wanted to briefly touch on. I don't usually cover extensions on the channel, but in this case, since it is a little bit lighter of a news day than yesterday, figured it was worth talking about, and I'm sure there's a couple Florida Panthers fans that may want to hear my thoughts. So the Panthers have extended defenseman Gustav Forsling to an 8-year, $46 million contract. He carries an AAV of $5.75 million. Forsling was set to become a UFA at the end of the season, would have been one of the best defenders on the open market without a doubt. Forsling has been a very good two-way top four defender for the Florida Panthers for a couple of seasons now. He is a fantastic skater, really good gap control. He's tenacious in his own zone, wins puck battles, moves the puck up the ice well, and he picks his spots well in terms of when it's time to jump up and get involved in the offense. This is a guy who has a great shot. He scored in double digits in each of the past two seasons, likely going to do that again this season as he already has 9 goals in 62 games. He is a league best plus 44, which is plus 11 higher than Quinn Hughes, who's second in the NHL in plus minus. This is a very important signing for the Florida Panthers. At 27 years old, signing him to an 8-year deal, you are locking him up all through his prime. You're going to get the best years of Forsling's career and at a very affordable $5.75 million. In my opinion, when this contract kicks in next season, it will immediately become one of, if not the best contracts on the Florida Panthers. This is a fantastic signing and good for Gustav Forsling. This is a guy who the Florida Panthers claimed off of waivers back in 2021. Now fast forward to 2024, just 3 years later, and Gustav Forsling signs an 8-year, $46 million contract. You love to see it. Definitely could go down as one of the best waiver claims of all time. Let's get into some trades now. The first one we have to talk about. The Nashville Predators have acquired forward Anthony Beauvillier from the Chicago Blackhawks in exchange for a 2024 fifth-round draft pick. This is now the second time Beauvillier has been traded this season. He was sent from the Vancouver Canucks to the Blackhawks back in late November, also for a fifth-round draft pick, so now Chicago is just basically getting a fifth-round draft pick back here. Beauvillier really didn't work out all that well in Chicago, just 2 goals in 23 games. His offensive production has really fell off of a cliff this season. Beauvillier is still only 26 years old. This is a guy who's had some strong goal-scoring seasons in the past. He's hit the 18-goal mark 4 different times. Beauvillier carries a cap hit of $4.15 million and is a UFA at the end of the season. Nashville has an abundance of cap space, so the cap hit really doesn't matter here. This is a guy who just last year scored 18 goals and put up a career-high 40 points in a season split between the Islanders and the Vancouver Canucks, so not a bad bet here by the Nashville Predators. Maybe they think he can get back to being a productive middle six player. Next up, the Toronto Maple Leafs acquire left shot defenseman Joel Edmonson from the Washington Capitals in exchange for a 2024 third and a 2025 fifth. The Washington Capitals are also retaining 50% of Joel Edmondson's cap hit, a contract that the Montreal Canadiens had already previously retained 50% on when they sent him to Washington, so the Leafs are getting Edmondson here for just $875K against the cap, and he will be a UFA at the end of the season. I've seen a lot of mixed emotions from Leafs fans on Twitter when it comes to this trade. I do think a third and a fifth is pretty pricey for a physical depth defenseman. I do feel like oftentimes people assume just because a player is physical and tough to play against, that automatically means they are good defensively. That's not really the case with Joel Edmondson. His defensive analytics this season with Washington have been very poor. His game is definitely much more suited for playoff hockey as opposed to regular season hockey. In the playoffs, you're able to get away with a little bit more, beat the hell out of your opponents out front of the net, cross checks in the corner, all that kind of stuff is what Joel Edmondson is very good at. He's got a good bit of playoff experience as well, which I do think the Leafs could use on the back end. Edmondson won a Stanley Cup with the Blues in 2019. He played key minutes for the Montreal Canadiens in their run to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2021. In my opinion, this is 1000% a trade the Leafs made to gear up for a potential very physical playoff matchup against teams like the Boston Bruins and the Florida Panthers. It's looking like it's going to be Boston and Toronto in the first round again. Moving along now to the next trade, we have a 1-for-1 swap of prospects here. The Anaheim Ducks have sent former first-round draft pick Jacob Perau to the Montreal Canadiens in exchange for Jan Mysak. Mysak was a second-round draft pick by the Montreal Canadiens. Both of these players selected in 2020. They're both 21 years old, both forwards. Jan Mysak has 13 goals and 20 points in 48 games this season in the American Hockey League. Jacob Perau, 18 points in 31 games. Not really a whole lot to break down here. This is just a change of scenery trade. Next up, the Edmonton Oilers add a little bit of depth on the blue line, acquiring defenseman Troy Stecher along with a 2024 7th round draft pick from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for a 2027 4th rounder. This is now the third consecutive year that Troy Stecher has been dealt around the deadline. I think he's a fine number 6, number 7 defenseman, might not be an everyday defender on a Stanley Cup winning team. He's a very good skater. I would definitely say that's Stecher's best asset. He had a strong first round playoff series for the LA Kings back in 2022 before going down with an injury. A playoff series that was actually against the Edmonton Oilers, so maybe Edmonton liked what they saw enough from Stecher in that playoff series to go out and trade for him at this year's deadline. It's a cheap depth option, not really something that's probably going to move the needle too much one way or the other. Next up, the Colorado Avalanche continue to be very active at this year's trade deadline. They have acquired winger Brandon Duhaime from the Minnesota Wild in exchange for a 2026 third round draft pick. Duhaime carries a cap hit of $1.1 million and will be a UFA at the end of the season. This is another one of those trades that I don't think is really going to move the needle all that much. Duhaime is a fourth line, forechecking winger who likes to fight, kills penalties, not really somebody who's going to chip in much offense. He's got just 4 goals this season in 62 games, but he's an energy guy and he provides Colorado with a little bit more depth. I feel like a third round draft pick for Brandon Duhaime is a little bit steep, but in my opinion, Colorado more than made up for this overpayment for Duhaime by getting an absolute steal in this next trade we're going to talk about, where they acquired Yakov Trennan and Graham Sword for a 2025 third and Jeremy Hansel. I think Yakov Trennan has the potential to be one of the more underrated additions of the entire deadline this year. Trennan carries a cap hit of $1.7 million, is a UFA at the end of the season, and this is a guy who's very versatile. He can play center, he can move to the wing, he can play up in the lineup in a pinch. He's big, he's mean, he's physical, he's not afraid to fight, plays a very strong 200-foot game. He's a very strong penalty killer as well, and is also capable of chipping in some offense. He's got 10 goals this season in 60 games, had 17 back in the 21-22 season with the Preds. He's good at creating chances off the cycle. He's a big body down low, hard to knock off the puck. In my eyes, Yakov Trennan really is the ideal bottom 6 forward. I think this is a big addition for the Avalanche, and he's a guy whose game notoriously has translated pretty well to the playoffs, albeit a small sample size with just 10 games, but in those 10 playoff games, he has 5 goals. So those are my thoughts on all of the trades that have taken place so far today, now under 24 hours away from the NHL trade deadline. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, especially if you're a fan of a team that was involved in any of the trades that we covered in this video. Sound off down below in the comments. Let me know how you're feeling. If you guys enjoyed the video and you're excited for more trade breakdowns over these next 24 hours, then be sure to leave this video a like. That is the best way to let me know that you enjoyed, and it does help out the videos a ton. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.